Par 5s, some of the most interesting holes in golf. Elite players and tour pros think they're the most scoreable opportunities there is, but they can strike fear into the heart of the recreational golfer. We're here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club, home of the 2023 Open. We've got Matt Fryer, and he is going to talk us through the best strategy to attack par 5s. So we're here on the 18th tee, Matt, and it looks tight. We've got out of bounds all down the right. Are you still seeing this as a scoring opportunity?
It can be and it can't be. I think there's a few things you have to take into consideration to make sure it does become a scoring opportunity instead of turning it into one of the card wreckers that you mentioned earlier.
Correct. Well, for you, from this tee, we've got bunkers down the left there, 234 yards to reach, 253 yards to get past. Out of bounds all down the right. Talk me through how you're going to go about this, and talk me through how a recreational player might make a good strategy from this tee.
Yeah, well, if we started with the recreational player, obviously, as you said earlier, it can be scary sometimes. I think we get onto par 5s and we think, oh, these are the super long holes. See this one here, 552 yards from where we're stood now. So that can bring a lot of fear into the golfer's eyes. You know, they think, oh, I'm never going to get there in 3, 4 maybe. It's a long way. I've got to hit some really good shots. But if we broke it down, I always say to my students, if it was, 3 shots that went 200 yards, we're 50 yards over the back of the green. So it's not actually too long in that sense. So don't let that big number think, well, that's your one destination almost. Break it down into small parts as we start. But then once we understand if we could do it in segments, 3 shots, 4 shots, bear in mind as well, a lot of people will probably have a stroke on the hole because they're usually in that sort of lower than 10 on the stroke index for these par 5s. To the team, we've sort of looked at the distance aspect. It's then building a plan, I think. A lot of amateurs would walk up here, a lot of friends that I play with would generally get the drivers round about that 230 to 250 mark, and they'll stand on the tee. They'll hit a great drive that goes somewhere down the middle, a couple of dodgy bounces, and you're in a pot bunker. And then straight away, now you've got to hack out, now you've got to try and get it back in play. You've almost forced bogey upon yourself.
Just one on that, whilst you're assessing the hazards, are you assessing the severity of those hazards to see whether it might be worth rolling the dice? If those bunkers were shallow enough to advance it 180 yards, might that be worth the risk of bringing them into play?
Yeah, definitely. And look at it and say, okay, well, what does it mean if I hit it in that bunker? Is it almost, a definite bogey because I'm going to be in this small little pot bunker that I've got to flick out? If it was a scraped bunker that I could even hit a 3-wood out of or a rescue and I can still go for it, you can go for it. So your first thing you've got to do is assess, well, what club can I put down there in play that can maybe allow me to go for the green in 2, or allow me to put my next shot into a point where I could hit a wedge or something like that into the green.
Well, this sounds very exciting. You're talking a good game, let's see it.
Let's see it. As I get this half decent, the out of bounds isn't in play and the bunkers shouldn't be in play either. That's a good one because I've actually pulled it a little bit left, but luckily, because of the club I've chosen, I've managed to clear the traps because my carry distance gets by that last one.
Right, Matt, we've located the ball. As you said, those bunkers out of play, they went a little bit left of that. Now you've got a bit of thinking to do, I guess. What's the first thing that you do now? I've got a yardage for you, you've got 277 to the pin. Where does your thought process go? What do you think when you get here?
Yeah, again, I think if we go back to what the amateur would do, we think, oh, 277, I need to get up there. It's par 5, I need to get there in 2. That's the only way I can make a birdie. If I knock it on in 2 and 2 putt. But we've got to look at the lie firstly, because that's going to dictate how I play those next 277 yards. And for me here, although I've managed to get out of the way of the trouble that was the bunkers and the out of bounds, it's not the best lie that we've got. So straight away, if I were to make the mistake, which I think I see a lot of amateurs go through, because we've got that distance, they think, right, get one of your long clubs out now, whether it's a 3-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood hybrid. We see that in behind the golf ball.
Not looking great, is it?
It's not going to be the easiest shot out of there. We know that we've got 277 and I like pitching from about 90 yards. I've got a club in my bag, a wedge that I use on a clock face style swing that I would know will go 90 yards. So it's okay, well, 277 minus my 90. I want to try and get it 187. The wind's a little bit into us today. So I've selected a 6 iron because this is my 195 club. but with this wind and how the lie is, there's going to be a bit of grass in between the club face and the golf ball, so that's going to take yeah, exactly, it's going to take some distance off me. I will get a nice bounce here, and also I just feel with the 6-iron it's enough to get the ball up out of that lie and still have some control with it. I could go 5-iron potentially or 4-iron, but again, the out of bounds is still running down the right hand side, so I know that that's there. I still want to maintain an element of control as I'm going through this. When we get onto the fairway in a moment, it's a different scenario.
Just taking you back a second, Matt, would you recommend most recreational players getting one? You mentioned 90 yards as a comfortable one for you. Would you recommend amateur players finding a number that they're particularly keen on and trying to play to that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as a starting point, I think a lot of amateurs, when we, you know, especially from a layup distance here, even if you're on a par 4, let's say, and you hit the ball into the trees and you're knocking out, you'll probably be knocking it round to some distance around that 100-yard mark all the time. So whether it's 75, 150, whatever it would be, if there was something that you were confident with, when you find yourself on the par 5s, what you're able then to do is say, right, okay, well, what is it I need to do to try and get as close as I can to that distance, if it's possible? If not, you will build another strategy to it.
Lovely shot. Wind just bringing it in.
There we go, scampering down the fairway. And now, it probably looks like I'm somewhere around that 90 number.
Right, so Matt, you played that one nice and safely. You were in the rough. I've magically popped you in the middle of the fairway here, just a little bit further up. I've given you 40 yards as well, which is very kind of me. That leaves us 235, I just lasered in fact, from the middle of the fairway. So I'm guessing for you, this would be a green light situation.
Yes.
Talk me through it. What consideration are you giving this from here? Because it's still not an easy shot. We've got bunkers in line with the pin short. We've got out of bounds down the right. What do you factor in here? A, from a strategy point of view, and B, from an equipment point of view?
Yeah, so I think again, strategy comes to that question of like what lays in front of us. As we saw off the tee, it was the bunkers off the tee and the out of bounds. When we were in the rough, it was the lie, and then also again the out of bounds. And what I was looking to do here, when I get into sort of my green light go scenario here, some people just go, oh well, it's my distance that I hit my rescue 3-wood, I'll do it. And they don't take into consideration, like you just said, 3 bunkers guarding the flag that look like they're very tight to it. The out of bounds is down the right, which brings you to where the front of the green is. So if I wanted to try and get this close today, I'm gonna have to get a little bit of launch on this and try and land it a little bit softly, because anything coming in flat is gonna get caught out by those bunkers and get snarled up in them. So I've got to try and carry this pretty much all the way and get this launching high and landing soft as I go through. So then when we move into our equipment side of things, you can see here I've got 3 of the woods that I do carry. I've got my 3-wood, I've got a 5-wood, and I've also got a hybrid. I chop and change with my 5 and the hybrid depending on where I'm playing, but all do a very different job, these things, you know.
In terms of distance and trajectory?
Yeah, distance and trajectory. So my 3-wood's a longer one. You would expect it to be the longest, but it's also a bit of a flatter flight. So this is a club that if I'm on the tee and I'm not driving it great, this is sort of my fallback to fairway finder. So if we go down to the 5-wood, this is one that again launches a little bit higher due to the loft, but what I've done is got a slightly stiffer shaft in here and a slightly firmer tip, because with a 5-wood, the issue I would find is that they do pop up a little bit too much. So depending on the profile of the shaft you would select.
So you're managing that loft with the profile of the shaft then?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we've got the Ventus in all of these here. The Rescue is the only one that isn't a TR one, and it's the hybrid model. But normally I'm a red Ventus player, so I'd normally see that go into my 5-wood, but it launches too high for me. A little bit softer in the tip, higher launching.
Yeah,
that's where I have the hybrid. So it sort of does the same job as my 5-wood, but this is sort of I want to get a par 4 that's maybe a little bit longer, you know, the 460s, or I want to get a par 5 in 2 when it's a nice still day. I can launch this up and know that it's going to pretty much stop like a 7-iron when it's coming in. So it comes down to, you know, I think getting a good fitting overall. There's lots of clubs out there, and when we go through our bag selection, maybe looking at what those woods are, especially in that end of your bag, because I see a lot of people still just carrying a 3-wood, and then when do you hit it? Oh, off the fairway. Do you generally have much success with it? Not really. I struggle to get it up. That's where maybe, You know, a 5-wood with maybe a slightly softer profile helps you launch it. Just because it says 5-wood on it, you know, my 5-wood nearly goes as far as my 3-wood, but it's going up a little bit more.
One more question.
Yeah.
You've got 230. Are you always trying to play to the yardage? Because I hear a lot of tour pros saying, when I hear those the conversation overhearing when the caddies chat to the player on tour, right, we're leaving this short, we're going to play to the back of the green, we're going to play over the... Is that something you bring into your game and recommend amateurs do?
Yeah, I would. You know, I'm a big user now of the watches, so I look at front, middle and back, and if it was a shot like this where I can see that there is trouble there, there's 3 pot bunkers that if I get them going in there and the faces look rather high from here, it's going to be a struggle getting it up and down. So 2, 3, 5, I'm on my hybrid, but actually for this shot I would probably say, right, I'm going to get 5-wood out because I know I can carry it there. And if I do go a little bit beyond, what we tend to find is that there's not much trouble at the back of the green. So
well, that's pretty much as you drew it up, Matt. High, floaty, middle of the green.
Oh, look at that.
I think we're looking at an eagle putt. Let's go and have a look.
We'd sell that one.
Right, Matt, we're here. We're at your layup. You've got 93 yards, so it was very good distance control from the rough. I'm impressed with that. You've actually opened up the angle as well here. You're right half the fairway, pins left. Is that something that was deliberate, or is that a happy accident?
Obviously,
okay, obviously we go. So right, you're back in position. Give me your thoughts from here.
Yeah, it's, you know, like we planned to get this distance, and now I've got a swing that I'm happy with. I've still got to take in the lie, I've also got to take in the conditions. We've got some wind coming in off the right, so that is going to, you know, change how I may play this shot, because as we look at where the hole is, that green, the flag is tucked right in the back left corner of it. So aiming straight at it, the bunkers are still there on that left-hand side. If I don't quite get it, the wind could kill it and knock it down towards it. So I'm probably actually going to aim in between where my second shot from the fairways ended up and where the flag is, to allow the conditions dictate what the flight of the ball will be.
Perfect.
And then again, I think from the amateur's standpoint, I see sometimes we get a little bit excited and we forget to do these things. We've just got to stick to a consistent plan as we go through this scenario and try and build a score. A lot of people think, oh, if I hit this close, I'm going to make birdie. It'll be my first birdie of the round, or, you know, first birdie ever. And they forget everything else that goes into it and subsequently end up hitting a poor shot.
And bring 6 into play.
Yeah, I think it's a case of, like we just, you know, mentioned, that consistent plan. We've done it from the tee, the layup, go through it again, just a couple of questions. Where's the trouble? What club do I need to do? Again, even technology comes into it here for what club you're using. I think a lot of people have too stiffer shafts in their wedges, and they're generally not using the correct loft as well.
Well, let's see this. I think a good shot here would still be inside that 5-wood you've just hit.
Yeah, if I get it inside that 5-wood, I've hit a pretty decent one. It's pumping up a bit, isn't it, the wind?
It is.
Right.
Stay there.
Hold up. Ooh, just off the back.
Right, down on the green, Matt. How would you assess that wedge shot? I know we're not, you hear all these people thinking you've got to stiff it every time with a wedge. Based on the yardage, the crosswind, the difficulty of that shot, how would you assess 22, 23 feet from there?
Yeah, well, if we go back to where the tee shot was, I'm happy to be here because we've managed to take what wasn't a great tee shot and set up the option of a birdie now. But yeah, 22 feet, pretty decent to be fair. It's just giving yourself that chance. If it would have been on the tee shot, I decided to hit a hybrid or a 3-wood because I thought, right, the only way I'm making birdie is by knocking it on in 2. I probably would have been in the out of bounds, so it's good to be in this spot and still have something available.
So you've been pragmatic, you've got the chance to break par. Let's see it, let's roll the birdie putt in.
No pressure then.
No pressure.
Just to win the Open.
Lovely putt, great pace, and the most stress-free par you can imagine. I'll give you that one.
Tap in one.
Let's go and see. The aggressive shot with a 5-wood has left you with a similar length for eagle. Now, no pressure, this would be a really grandstand finish. You've been aggressive, you've taken the shot on, you've pulled it off. How do you control your excitement levels here? I see that a lot of times in amateurs, they hit a great shot.
Acceptance in it, we have hit a great shot. The amount of times we would hit this shot to here, you know, it's probably a 2 out of 10. something like that. So it's, you know, yeah, eagle's going to be great, but let's just take everything into account again, read it, calm ourselves down, go through that consistent strategy. If we hole it, brilliant. If not, let's make sure it was another simple stress-free tap-in like we had a minute ago.
Looking good, just a little shy of pace. That's enough for me.
An eagle putt short.
Left it short, but it's good enough for me, and a very easy birdie. So two very different ways of attacking the par 5 there we've highlighted.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway message for those at home?
I think for me, it's, you know, finding the trouble. You know, don't be overwhelmed when we get on the tee firstly. Find out where the trouble is throughout the hole. Have a consistent plan, and then if we are looking at the top end of our bag, get the clubs right for the job. Don't just pick clubs off the shelf thinking I need a 3-wood or 5-wood. Pick the ones that are right for you, get the right shafts that are going to help you do the right shot for you.
There you have it. Strategy, don't be overawed, get the right equipment and attack the par 5s.